Welcome back to the Name Five Players podcast. I'm Tony Wetmore,
I'm Cassie Narkis.
And I'm Diane Raddick.
and we are so excited to have our first guest on for the podcast, Sabrina Della, the coordinator of corporate partnership services at the Tampa Bay Rays. Sabrina, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in your sports journey.
Thanks for having me, ladies. I'm so excited to be here. All right, back to the start. I would say I probably got started in my sports journey about my junior year of college. I knew I liked marketing. I knew I liked sponsorship. I knew I liked that type of world, but I wasn't getting the fulfillment that I knew that I could. So I kind of was navigating around, ended up kind of beginning with an arena football team in Albany, New York, the Albany Empire. And I did marketing job shadowing. I did some looks into ticket sales, social media, things of that matter. Wasn't there too long, just about 2 months, just to kind of see what went on there, what happened behind the scenes. And then from there, I was like, okay, love marketing. Now that it's tied to sports, it's 10 times better. So from there, I went to EAG Sports Management, which is a lifestyle management firm for NFL and NBA athletes out in California. I was in New York at the time, so I was working remote. And essentially, we were just kind of carrying out those lifestyle management tasks for our athletes. And that could be, managing media lists, managing EPKs, juggling a multitude of client tasks. If they wanted to travel, if they wanted to do gifting for their significant other, it was really anything that they needed that was off the field matters. I worked definitely a lot with the youth football camps for our NFL clients, which was a ton of fun. Kind of put my hand in the event management pot, which I absolutely loved. From there, I went to UAlbany football, was a fan engagement intern there. So this is kind of when I was like, okay, I want to try every single department, kind of get a feel for a couple different things, and then be able to pave my path a little bit more smoothly. Did fan engagement, loved it. I kind of grooved into TikTok, did some Instagram. I went into fan engagement, but I left being like, okay, I touched about 10 different departments. So it was phenomenal. They were rock stars over there. And I was like, on my sports path, I'm like, this is where I'm going and this is where I'm going to continue to go. I then was an intern at Rosenhaus Sports Representation, working primarily with the NFL guys. And that's, developing spreadsheets, displaying brand outreach, getting their Christmas gifting together, making presentations to reflect our athletes, what partners would be good for them, what can we do to leverage them as an athlete, and loved that. Then went to volunteer with the Hula Bowl, did a little bit of player admin / hospitality. I volunteered there. I was there for the week. Awesome. Met incredible athletes that I was then able to kind of watch kickstart their career, which was super, super special. And coming to the end of my senior year, I was like, all right, now it's your life. Let's get into it. And applied. And at this point, I was super driven for the NFL, but wasn't really super sure on the department. Applied to probably almost every NFL team, to be honest with you, and ended up getting a role with the Giants. And that was at the end of June. I started with them in July, and I was a corporate partnerships intern. So I was creating asset trackers, evaluating contracts, bringing those contracts to life, making sure that those assets are fulfilled on our part, because obviously we have to hold up our end of the bargain there. Worked on a ton of community initiatives, Play 60, Heart of a Giant, which is something Giant specific, which was my baby. I absolutely love doing that. And basically just the overall planning, research, hospitality, anything under that umbrella. That came to an end of the season. One of the best experiences of my life. I miss them every day. And then I was like, all right, now we're moving on to the next. Applied kind of all over the grid. It wasn't really just football anymore. It was more so like, okay, now I know the department and it's corporate partnerships. Where can I go that will offer me a good opportunity? Ended up interviewing with the Rays. And, it was baseball. It was something that I hadn't worked in before. So I was a little bit like, I don't know, let's kind of go through the process. Ended up interviewing and completely fell in love with the people. And when it came down to the offer, I was like, yes, 100%. She was like, can you start in 2 weeks? I was like, whoa, because I was living in, right outside of New York City. So I was like, okay, yep, we're doing this. So moved down to Tampa Bay in 10 days. I think I made it. and started with the Rays. And like Tony said, I am a coordinator of corporate partnership services. And here I manage, I believe at the moment it's 21 accounts, and essentially just bring their contracts to life. All of our partners have different assets included in their contracts. So I work with the sales team to kind of see what's going to go in on those and then activate them. And then in addition to that, I also do some hospitality events such as opening day. That's the one I'm planning right now. And it's actually falling on my birthday. So I feel like I'm kind of planning like a little mini birthday party.
Party. That is
A
so
birthday
cute.
on the diamond. Oh my gosh.
Right? And so, I mean, I'm about 4 weeks in and that's where I'm at. And I absolutely love it.
Wow. That is quite a story, not gonna lie. I love that whole journey. So you're from New York, I'm assuming, since you did a lot of work in New York and went to college there?
From New York, born and raised. And then I was like, I wouldn't mind going to Florida. Let's do it.
I'm
Good decision.
Jen, we're here in Florida right now. We can definitely. I mean, I was
Yes.
born and raised here, but this one, she was like, I'm gonna move to
Yeah, I
Florida.
was from Texas, and I was like, I want to go to Florida. It looks fun. Now I'm
Girl,
here.
come to Florida.
Especially
Tony.
Tampa.
Come on, Tony. Where
Yeah,
you
Tony,
at?
where you at?
Are you
I
guys
might
coming
have
to
to
visit?
admit, I'm at the airport. I'm gonna have to fly
She's at
down
the
there.
airport.
You know,
She's moving to Florida, guys.
Yeah.
Are you coming to Tampa?
I'm going to Charlotte right now, though. I might have to add it to the list of trips in the near future.
So yeah, let's preface. You're not from. When I feel like when a lot of people say like, "Oh, I'm from New York," people automatically assume the city. You're from upstate New York, correct?
Yes, not the
There is
city.
a difference. There is a difference.
Newsflash, people do exist from not New York City.
Who would have
I'm
thought?
from
Who would've
upstate,
thought?
upstate New York, 4 hours north. Bring
Yeah,
it
no,
way
as
over
soon,
there.
as soon as you said Albany, I was like, oh my gosh, Albany, because I used to go to a summer camp in upstate New York in Diamond Point, New York, in Warren County. So I'm very familiar with that area. I flew into the Albany airport like every single summer and was all over
Is
the place.
the invisible string theory happening right now?
Another
Like-
invisible string. Yeah, we
That's
just talked
happening
about
right now.
this is another invisible string theory. Here we go. Me and my
Yeah.
invisible strings. But yeah, no, so I'm very familiar with upstate, and I am much more an upstate fan than a New York City fan. I feel like that's a hot take, but I love upstate New York. So
Not a hot take. Upstate is beautiful.
gorgeous. I would live up there in a heartbeat if it wasn't for the 17,000 feet of snow every winter. I feel like coming from Florida, that would not work very well. But any other time of the year, I'm there. I'm 100% there. So you talked a little bit about you getting a little bit of a late start in college. If you want to talk a little bit more about your college experience, because I know you came from a smaller college, and we're all coming from we're from an SEC school. Tony's at Oklahoma State. So can you talk about a little bit the difference of coming from a smaller school into sports rather than like going to a big conference school and coming into sports?
Yeah, absolutely. So just overarchingly answering that question, I did not start wanting to go into marketing or sports. You know, I started as teaching, I switched to nursing. Like I was just trying stuff out. And every time I would switch my major, I would get an internship. So I was really not knowing what was going on. I was like, all right, I'm here for the ride. Let's try it out. And I actually started at Lynn University, which is a really, really small school in Boca. Ended up transferring after a semester, and then I went to Siena, which is in upstate New York in Albany. And essentially, I think I had to work a lot harder. You know, every single role that I just outlined to you up until the Giants was not posted. There was nothing about the role. There was no, hey, reach out to us for this. None of that. I kind of dug for some contacts, found a contact and was like, listen, I'm willing to do this for free. I'm willing to do this for credit. Like, what can you allow for me to watch? I just want to get in the door. What can I do? And, you know, Rosenhaus is a perfect example where they didn't have anything at the time, but I was like, okay, you know, keep me on a list. And if something comes up, you know, please do reach out. And they ended up reaching out, and I was like, wow, you know, like following through, that's awesome, because we see that not happen a lot in sports. And so I think just coming from a small school, I had to outreach and do a little bit more than somebody who's in that light. You know, I didn't have a football team to work for at Siena, and football was my main gig. So I went to UAlbany, and still not a big school, you know? And so I think just going the extra mile and reaching out to people and LinkedIn connections and informational interviews. I think that was super important to my success, because I mean, I'm 23 right now, and 2 weeks, so not even 23 yet. And I'm on my, second professional league. So I think I can owe a lot of the success to kind of just branching out and being comfortable with being uncomfortable, because a lot of what I've done has made me super uncomfortable. But
that's like my big thing in my life is like seek being uncomfortable, seek discomfort. That's like my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you're comfortable with something, you're not growing. And so, I've gotten real comfortable with being uncomfortable, really.
I feel like just working in the sports industry, goes without saying anyway. Like you're never going to be fully comfortable in a position. There's always going to be something that you're doing that you've either never done before or you might not like doing it, but you got to do it anyway. So I feel like that is definitely says a lot.
That's actually kind of funny because one of my questions was I was going to ask like what like a theme in your life is, and knowing that it's seeking discomfort. My question is, when exactly did you know that was going to be like your theme in your life?
Hard-hitting questions over here.
That's a good question. That's a really good one.
She's a journalist.
You know what I'm going to say? I think every single role I had, I would walk into a room, I would be entered into a Zoom with almost all men. And so it was something I had to learn pretty quickly that, I'm the only female in the room. I'm, one of 3 females in this room. I need to, because of the world we live in, I need to, prove myself to get here, which I found I deserve to be there just as much as every other male. And so I think in terms of, being uncomfortable, I was super uncomfortable with that. I was like, this is a male dominated industry and I'm trying to come in and get shit done. And I had to come in and I had to prove myself. And it's something that, imposter syndrome, it is so real. And I just have to consistently remind myself, like, no, like I deserve a seat at this table. And if there's not a seat for me, I'm going to pull a chair up because I'm going to sit at this table because I deserve to be here. And so just being uncomfortable, like I thrive off of it now because I'm like, I love this. I want to make other people uncomfortable because that's where I'm at. Like we're all growing, like let's get there together.
Mm-hmm. Standing on business.
So she's standing on business. No,
yes.
I heard something you said reminded me of a quote that I heard a little bit ago, and it's such a good one. It says, if you can't find a seat at the table, stand at the table. Like, just be at the table. And like, if they won't give you that seat, be there anyway. And just be that voice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had that in my head for weeks now. And I feel like that's just such a good thing, especially for women in sports, is like most of the time you're not given that opportunity. So you got to make the opportunity for yourself. So.
Yep, absolutely. I galvanize. Oh, voice crack. I galvanize. We like to say, if there's not a seat at the table yet, make your own table. And so like kind of similar idea, like make your own path and, find that way. Speaking of galvanize and speaking of all these other networking things, I know we met through Instagram, I believe, right, Sabrina? That was where we first connected, was on Instagram, I think.
We first connected through Instagram DM, but
yes.
I think we knew of each other from the TikTok group chat.
Yeah, which Diane's in as well. So that's how everybody kind of connected here. But that just goes to show how important the networking is. So I know we had talked a little bit before about the Giants and other things and how networking played a role in that. But for those who don't know about you, how did networking play a role in your career, and just how important is it in this industry to have those connections and build those relationships?
So I'm going to talk just specifically to my Giants role because it is outrageous how that ended up happening. The beginning of my junior year, like I said, I was, just starting. I was just kind of starting getting into it because I had gone through the ringer with all of these different internships in different fields. In the beginning of my junior year, I had a guest speaker. Her name was Katie, and she is the director of corporate partnerships at the Giants currently. And Katie's a Siena alum. She, joined Zoom, talked to us about her career. And I remember I left that day, I was like, oh my gosh, like I would love to not only work with her one day, but to be like her. Like she's phenomenal. She's to this day somebody I look up to heavily, one of my biggest mentors. But I was like, wow, she's awesome. And I remember I went home and I sent her a message on LinkedIn, thanks so much for coming. I have a huge interest in what you do, like, let's stay in contact. And I was definitely that person that, quote unquote, like followed up. And I annoyed her probably for multiple times, multiple months. And, I informational interviewed her. Hey, Katie, what's going on? How's life? How are you doing? Just staying on the grid with her. And it came time to graduate, and Katie sent me a message and was like, hey, Sabrina, we have this role coming open. You should apply for it. And I was like, wow, like, okay. And at the time when I was applying, I was like, I know a little bit about corporate partnerships, but I've never worked directly in it. So, I don't know how my chances are looking here, but, she's telling me to apply. I'm going to do it. And I applied. She helped me prep. She's like, you got this. Let's do it. And I ended up interviewing, and that's the role I ended up getting. And, had she not sent that message, that's not one that I would have saw on Teamwork Online and I would have went and applied for, because to me, I was like, I don't know if I have like enough experience in this. And so that's just one example of I would have never probably gotten to the Giants if I had not stayed in contact with her. If I sent that one message and let her fall off the grid, she wouldn't have considered me for that. She wouldn't have been like, Sabrina might be a good person for this. But, because I followed up, because I continued, she was like, you would be good for this, and I think you should go for it. And so reaching out and networking is important, but just as important, maybe even more important, is following up and like still knowing that that person's a human being. How are you? How are you doing? And so Katie's just one example of how it has like skyrocketed my career.
Nice. I really like that, because it's just another example of women reaching out to women and giving other women opportunities. So that's actually really nice. For a second, when you said Katie, it kind of scared me for a second. I don't know if you thought, but we also work under Katie, who is like a Buffalo girl. So we're like, is this going to be the same Katie? It's not the same Katie, but yeah, no, I was like, Katie, but different Katie. So you talked a little bit about having most of your experience in college in football, and you knew that you wanted to go into football being your first role. Now you're working for the MLB and you're in baseball, which is her thing. But how was that transition for you? Because I know you said you did a lot of work in football, so I know that baseball was probably not something that you were thinking you're going to get into, at least not right now, at least a year after you graduated. So how was that transition?
Yeah. It's a little bit of whiplash. I'm not going to lie. It is a little bit of whiplash. I mean, just thinking about, MetLife Stadium, for example, that's just what I know at this point. We didn't have too much physical signage. Our cornerstones were physical signage, but, everything was LED ribbon, video boards, pylon. Baseball, everything is physical. And so I came here and they're like, all right, Sabrina, you're spearheading signage. And what I love about the Rays is that they just let me know what I'm doing. And they're like, listen, you're going to learn. Let's just do it. And they're so awesome with, teaching me how to do things and letting me kind of follow through that. So I think the biggest change is signage. I'm working with all these signage vendors for outfield wall, fixed home plate, which, to be honest with you, I didn't even know existed before I came here. And so in terms of all the signage stuff, that's outrageous. In terms of my partner responsibilities, definitely super similar. Just fulfilling those contracts is a skill that I acquired with the Giants that I was able to take here. But, relating back to the signage, the assets in those contracts are incredibly different. With the Rays, I'm looking at 81 games this season, 81 home games. And for the Giants, we had 8. And so, some assets that we had at the Giants, might have been a little bit of a bigger production, but maybe they do it, 10 times with the Rays. And, that would never be able to happen with the Giants. So I could go on for probably 20 minutes. Almost everything is different. And I'm a huge, huge football fan. And so working in football for me was like, gosh, like this is like my passion. I absolutely love this. And I'm definitely interested to see, how baseball rolls out. Like I said, opening day is March 28th for us. And because I haven't worked a season, I'm only a month in and it's off season, we're spring training, but it's not really full swing yet. So I'm definitely curious to see. I mean, I'm so glad I was open to this opportunity because like I said, the people here, the opportunity I'm getting, it's incredible. And before I wasn't open to other sports. And so I'm interested to see kind of how how it plays out, not really having too much of a background in the sport. But, I'm being present where my feet are. I'm going in with an open mind, and I think that's all I can do at this point.
Yeah.
So I know you briefly touched on this, but what was it like in that moment where you were graduating from college, kind of like in that job search, like momentum and stuff, and then finally like getting your job and stuff? And then similarly, what was that like again through the like Giants and through the Rays?
Oh my gosh. When I graduated, I was like, well, what is going on? What am I doing? I had never felt more confused or lost. Like I had done so many internships, and I was like, I should have something planned out by now. Like I feel like I'm ready, and I feel like I'm prepped for this. And I don't think anything can actually prepare you for what, happens when you graduate, because, you're just done. And so when I graduated, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? And I started applying like heavily in March. And so when I graduated in May, the fact that I didn't have anything, like, I just simply could not process it. And it made me go down kind of like a bad path, because I was like, at this point, with finding a job, I'm only going to give it till the end of July. And I, of course, was like, as the date came closer, I was like, all right, well, maybe just in one more month. Like I would continue pushing it. But I was like, I can't push this forever. And I kind of went through like a weak phase. I don't call it a breaking point. I call it a bending point, because I didn't actually break, but I was like, I don't like, maybe I pursue something else like this. It's not working. And like, I'm going to do what I can, but at some point I'm going to have to get another job. And I just kind of kept applying. And when the Giants called me to offer me, I did my second round interview there, and I was like, didn't go as good as the first one. Like, I don't think I'm going to get it. So it was kind of something that I just put off. And I was supposed to hear on a Friday, and they called me on a Wednesday at like 5:30. I'm like, this is definitely the call where they're going to be like, you're not getting the job. And they picked up the phone and they were like, we really enjoyed getting to know you. And I'm like, they're literally about to reject me. They're literally about to reject me. And he was like, we want to offer you. And I just, on the other end of the phone, I go, oh my gosh, wait, really? And I literally hit the floor on the phone. I'm crying with who's going to be my future boss. And I'm like, I'm so excited. Thank you so much. He goes, okay, so do you accept? I'm like, of course I accept. And he's like, all right, same gig that happened with me with the Rays. They were like, all right, you got to be here in 10 days. And I was like, what? And then I was like, all right, just New Jersey. Let's do it. When that moment, like that feeling, I have never had a moment like that in my life thus far. And I don't think I ever will, to be honest with you, because flash forward to getting the Rays job, I was super excited. I was over the moon, but it didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like my first step. Also, I didn't really preface this. I'm a Giants fan. And so getting a job with my team was like, oh my gosh, like nothing could be better than this. And then when I got it with the Rays, I was more so like, I deserve this. Like, this is something that I can obtain. And, that's why I got it, because I deserve this role and I deserve to be here. Whereas I felt a little bit not as confident, like during my interview process with the Giants, because I kept kind of like feeling down on myself. Like, am I really going to follow through on this? Like, is anybody going to hire me? So that feeling, I could get like the best job in the United States of America. I will not ever have that feeling that I had from when I got the Giants offer.
Oh, that's so cute. That's like, we're hoping for that feeling soon.
Yeah, soon, very soon. It's gonna say,
it's coming, girls. It is coming. I get to work too, my first day, and I overhear people talking in my department. They're like, "Is that the one that cried when you offered her?" I'm like, "You told everybody."
No way.
I would cry if I heard people talking about me crying. Oh my goodness.
No, it was. And then fast forward to my last day, I think I probably cried 6 times in my last day with the Giants. This is so sad. Like these people, like I feel like the Giants organization in general, like built who I am. So like I'm saying bye to these people. They're saying all these things, and I'm like, you guys, I can't handle this.
So sweet.
I love that. I keep adjusting my AirPods because I'm smiling so much, and whenever I smile or laugh,
They like push it out of your
I'm like, you're going like that. But I just kind of wanted to piggyback off that idea with Diane talking about applying and that waiting period. And so, how did you stay focused, stay positive when, I know you said you applied to all 32 teams basically, when you weren't hearing yes or you were hearing no or just nothing at all? How did you stay focused, stay grounded, and know that what was meant for you was coming and that it was going to work out somehow?
It's tough. It's tough. I don't think there's a secret sauce to it, honestly. I think it's more so you kind of get used to it. I remember at first, my first kind of big rejection with like a professional team was the Dolphins. And I remember I had applied for their leadership development program. And I remember like I thought it was the end of the world. Like I was destroyed. I was like, I'm never going to get a job. If they don't want me, who else is going to want me? And that was like my first big rejection. And from there, I remember I posted about it on LinkedIn like a week later. And I was like, you know what? I looked at it in a different way. I shifted my perspective. I was like, okay, what this means to me is that I'm one no closer to my yes. And so once I started realizing that, I was applying like a maniac. I would get, there was a day once, it was quite the day. I had, I think, 9 rejection emails in one day. And I think after that Dolphins kind of change of pace, I was like, I'm actually okay with getting no's because the more I get, that means I'm getting closer to where I'm supposed to be. And I am like such a believer in that God's got me. And wherever I'm supposed to be and whatever is meant for me, it's gonna be mine. I'm not gonna have to fight people for it. It's gonna be mine. And so I think just the shift of perspective that you have to make is what's going to make it okay. I remember I was with the Giants. I was like 3 months in and I still got rejection emails. And I was like, this is funny. Like, this is funny because the waiting period is tough because some teams, I've interviewed some places where I've gone start to finish in a week. I've also interviewed some places that it has taken 4 months start to finish. And so I think that's also one of the hardest parts, everyone's working on a different timeline. Are they in season? Are they out of season? Everyone's working on a different timeline. And so, you're going to ask and be like, hey, when do I expect to hear back? Like, you always put that at the end of your interviews, but, they're going to be like, oh, we're working at this date. But as we all know, dates always change. We're not always working on the timeline. We're kind of veering off because this came up or this came up. So I think just a shift of mindset is what made me be okay with it because it sucks. There's no way to sugarcoat it. The waiting game sucks. Getting rejected sucks. But if you just, shift your mindset to the point of, I wasn't meant to be here. And if I was meant to be here, they would have told me yes, but they told me no. So this opportunity isn't for me. Let's keep rolling. And I think once I got into that mindset, like I would see rejection emails, I'd be like, haha, okay, delete. I just got more in the groove of it. And I think that's why, you just have to look at it differently in the sense of like, it's not meant for me. Okay. It's meant for somebody else. And I'm happy for that person because that's what's meant for them. And because at the end of the day, Tony and I, we have spoke this all the time. Like there's always enough room for other people. And it's like, I'm going to the top. We're all going to the top. Let's bring other people with us. Like there's a space for everybody. And like we're just talking about now, wherever you're meant to be, it's where you're going to be. Go for the same stuff. Go, whatever's meant for you, it's yours and nobody else's.
Yeah, that's really.
I love the every no that you get is closer to the yes. I absolutely love that saying.
Wizards of Waverly Place, where she's like, every broken heart, you're closer to like your true love or whatever. That's the first thing I thought of. I was like, oh my gosh. I love it.
No, I was gonna say, before Diane started talking about Disney Channel, I was gonna say. I can't look at her when she's laughing like this. Okay. I was gonna say I feel like that's very more inspirational for a lot of people that are looking into jobs like us, because a lot of people get very distraught when it takes months and months and months and months until they get their first job offer or even hear back from a job, whether it's rejection or an offer. So to know that there are other people out there that are doing just fine in their careers like yourself that waited those months and months, I think that's definitely makes people feel a little bit lighter. Makes me feel like I'm not screwing up, because I talked about this last week, but every Tuesday we have our capstone class and our professor is talking about careers and what we should be doing and when we should be applying. And we're like,
no, like literally, like we'll drive home from this class and both be like, we want to, like we're done with life. Like, this is too much.
It's a mixture between like rage and then disappointment. And then 20 minutes later, we're like, I'm hungry. Let's go get food. So it's
and then we're like, will you look at my resume?
Yeah, and then we come home and compare resumes and freak out that it's not good enough. So that is us every Tuesday. Thankfully, we're on spring break, so we get a break from that this week. But yeah, that's about
that's another thing. People who are outside of the sports world, it is not the same.
I would love to tell you what one visitor to our capstone class did a few weeks ago. So we have like a career connection center on campus. And so two of them came into our class a few weeks ago to just kind of like give us some tips on resumes and stuff. This is a sports capstone class, by the way. So everybody in here is looking for a sports related job. And no shade to the career connection ladies. I'm sure that their work helps a lot of other people, but they didn't know sports stuff. So they were recommending all these things and said like, oh, you need a very plain resume and very professional resume. And then I'm sitting here like, I'm going into social media. Why would I want to present myself as a professional, bland, boring person when I want to put like color on it and stuff?
You know what's wild though is, so I fixed my resume to make it more like that. This lady from ESPN reads it and goes, it's just too professional. And I'm like,
exactly. So that's another thing. We're at the point where we're like, okay, what is actually wanted? What, like, do you want the actual professional stuff or do you want my personality?
I need to tell you, because this is like the biggest thing. People people reach out to me from Siena or just young people looking for jobs. And I, first of all, always take that because I'm like, so many people helped me get here. I'm going to help others. But like, they're like, oh, the career center wants me to have the generic layout. I go, no. You cannot have that. Mine, I showed the Career Center my resume, and I think they almost had a stroke because it was not like, and they were like, oh my gosh, you need to resubmit this, and you need to, change this and take off the, I have like a little LinkedIn icon with my LinkedIn on there. Like I'm trying to, there's a stack of resumes that big. You need to make yours different, and you need to remove this. I'm like, I gotta be honest with you, I'm not coming back here.
I know.
It's me.
No, honestly, if they never came to our class, I never would have met them because I'm not going in there.
No, yeah, like what?
Yeah, it's not happening. And I think them just coming into our class just solidified the fact that I really love you guys, but don't need your advice.
No, and like what she was saying though is like the sports industry is so different, it's down to your resume, down to like the waiting game, because like everyone else, like especially in tech, they're like, oh yeah, I have a job like in a year from now. And I'm like,
yeah. Like we have friends that are in engineering that have already had jobs lined up since the beginning of fall semester. So it's like, oh, well, the job I might have probably hasn't even posted their opening yet. Like that's how different it is. So that's definitely another.
So different. And it's like just like the application volume, it is not even close to the same. Like we're talking thousands of applicants. Like if your resume looks the same, you're going to get thrown in the trash.
Exactly.
You're going to be in the garbage.
Yeah.
It's
definitely a tough one. But then they're like, well, if it's not laid out this way, then the AI applicant tracking system is automatically going to flag it and get rid of it. And I'm like,
that's not true.
I'm sure about. Thank you. Debunked. Myth debunked.
That's the T.
That's myth debunked. Because they're like, yeah, it has to be like in like the columns and stuff. And if it's like a weird wonky layout, like Canva, like I originally made my resume on Canva because it's easier to make a nice layout and like make it look professional and different at the same time. They're like, oh, well, you can't submit something you made off of Canva because it doesn't have the columns correctly. And I'm like,
okay, if that's true, I'm not sure how I have a job because mine does not.
Exactly. So we're here, myth debunked. AI sucks and it has not taken the resume yet.
Yeah.
Quite yet. Maybe in the future, but as of right now, we're good. But I was gonna say we got a little bit off track there. We started.
I know.
I love our
The rage came out for the Career Center, okay?
Oh yeah, no. I'm sure the Career Center has helped a gazillion other people, but not
in sports.
Not us.
We love you, Career Center.
But going back to, you were talking about like a little bit about your move from New York to Tampa and how you really only had like 2 weeks to get down here and you were kind of stressed about that. So how was that move for you? Because I know it's definitely a huge question, especially in sports, is that you're probably not going to end up where you start. Like I'm most likely not going to get my first job in Florida. Like, you just kind of have to, oh, I know, tears. You just kind of got to go where the opportunity presents itself. So you kind of came down here. You don't really have any family or friends down in Tampa. I don't know. Do you?
No, not in Tampa. My mom is over on the other coast, but still like a 3-hour drive. I do have some family on the other coast, 3-hour drive, but I don't consider that, close. I'm still, navigating my new place solo, riding solo.
How was that move for you? Kind of moving into an area where you don't really know anybody, you don't have any roots, and you're starting a brand new job. So kind of talk us through that process. More of like the mental side, I guess, of the job.
Nuts. Absolutely crazy. I remember like I accepted the job. I had been to Tampa one time. And the only reason I was here is because I was driving down to South Florida and I stopped at a bar here. That's the only time I've been to Tampa. Like, that's it. And so when she offered me, she needed an answer by the next day. Obviously, I could not fly here in 2 seconds. Like, just, wasn't going to be in the cards for me. So I fully accepted the job, having never been here, like, at all, besides the bar. But, what does that really show you? And so 2 days later, I flew down here. I had to find an apartment. I had to start moving. And I remember, I literally haven't even told anybody this, but this is like the craziest thing. I got here and I like talked to my mom that night. I was like, Mom, I don't know if this is for me. Like, I don't know if I should actually take this job. Like, this feels weird. And looking back, I was scared shitless. Like, I was coming to this place. I don't really have many friends here. I have some friends from high school that moved down, but it's like, they're doing their own thing. They're living their own life. And, looking back, I was scared shitless. I called my mom the other day. I'm like, Mom, if you hadn't like pushed me to stay, like, I'm not even sure if I would have gone into this job, because I remember coming here and I was like, oh my gosh, I saw every single apartment. I looked at like 20 apartments. I remember I would leave every single one. I'd be like, I don't really like this. My mom's like, it's beautiful, Sabrina. Like, what's the problem? I'm like, I don't know, because, my one in New Jersey is, this, that, and this. And she's like, no, Sabrina, like this apartment is very nice. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with you. And so, I mean, it just loops back around to being uncomfortable. Like I went home and I packed up all my things and I just came here. And it was like, I moved here on Sunday and I started work on Monday. And so it's like, I almost didn't really have like enough time to think about it. And I now look back and I'm like, it's been a month. And that was pretty crazy that I just did that. Like that's a little nuts, but here I am. And so I think just everything I've ever done, I've just had faith that God is leading the path, and he always does. And he always, brings me out the other side of the tunnel. But this one was big, going from upstate to Jersey, 3-hour drive tops. And so, I could get home. I could, any day if I really wanted to, I could go home. And this one, I don't have that. Now that season's starting, I don't even know the next time I'm going home, to be honest with you. I'm super lucky that my family is all rock stars and they come and visit me. But this was a big one. And this, like, I was, it's all the way down, all the way down the country. And so I think just having faith that this is where I was meant to be. And also just, if it doesn't work out, it's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to continue, making choices that are going to better me in my career. And you know, it led me here, and I'm going to keep doing just that. And who knows where it's going to lead me next? I really don't know. And I think the biggest thing about sports is that you have to be open because, you know, had I just been closed off to upstate New York, first of all, I wouldn't have had a job, like, period. And, you know, had I just been closed off to Manhattan, more options, but not anywhere near, you know, when I was when I was in college, I was applying to California, I was applying to everywhere, like from Cali all the way to New York, all the way down to Florida, all the way across. Like, I was covering all bases, and I was like, God, if I ever actually got one of those jobs, like, that would have been crazy. But I got rejected, so it's okay. But like, I just think having faith in the path, that's just what you got to do. Even some days, like, I wake up and I'm like, whoa, I really did that. That's kind of nuts.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so cool to hear that because like I had that experience myself a little bit earlier because so I'm from Texas and I moved to Florida basically on like I'm gonna take the biggest risk and kind of come here to college. I didn't know anyone. I had this dream of like pursuing sports and studying sports at the University of Florida. I started at community college here. And so this whole thing was a big like what if. I don't have like the closest family to me is also like on the East Coast of Florida. And so like just hearing that's kind of like interesting. But my question is, you've talked a lot about like women in the industry, just like being there and like supporting you and like people you looked up to. And I was just wondering if you had any like opposite experiences with it. Cause I just know from talking with like Cassie, we've had some interesting experiences. And even Tony, like we've all had our fair share of.
We'll do a whole nother episode on our on some women in the industry that have not helped us. But for you, have you had any personal experiences with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, more than I'd like to admit, honestly. I'm always, you know, going in whenever I meet, you know, women in the industry, I always go in with the mindset that they're similar to me, that they are going to want to help me. They're going to want to, you know, pull up a seat for me at the table. They're going to want to elevate me to the next level. And that's definitely not always the case. You know, I've had some people that, you know, I've had some people that I've worked with that, you know, don't like my personality. And because of that, you know, they try to, you know, put me in a box. And when I first started, I was like, okay, maybe I should go in the box because then maybe, you know, I'll be able to elevate my career and, you know, maybe I should consider that. And it's in those moments where you're like, what? I'm not going in the box for anybody. Like the reason that I've gotten where I've gotten is because I've been myself. And authentically being yourself is what gets people to elevate. You know, I've also had some people that, Tony, we chatted about this. We've applied to similar jobs and they've been like, oh, you know, like, I don't know if that's right for you. Like, maybe you should apply like to this. And it's like, no, what's meant to be for you is going to be for me. What's meant to be for me is going to be for me. Let's cheer each other on. Like, because in reality, if one of us gets it, that's awesome. I love that for us. And it's just like, I think so many people think that it's a competition. And it's like, we're already such a minority in the industry. Why are you thinking that way? Like, why are you thinking that way? We need to be together. We need to, you know, build relationships with one another so that we can leverage those relationships. And so while I've seen the ugly side of it, there's also just as many phenomenal women that have reached down and pulled me up, so many mentors, but it's definitely wouldn't be right to say that that everybody's like that because that's not the case. I think a lot of women do think competition is kind of in the game with it, but it's like, no, like anytime I talk to anybody, I'm like, I think you should work in sports. And I'm not biased, but this is why I think that. Like, it's never, oh, well, you know, there's not going to be enough space for you. So maybe I shouldn't, you know, encourage that from you. That doesn't even make sense. That makes no sense. And so the way that some women act does blow my mind, but I try to focus on the good because I like to think that it outweighs the bad. I like to think so, but there's days where I'm like, I don't know about that.
No, definitely. And I already mentioned it once, but I'm going to keep plugging Galvanize and their logo, slogan, whatever you want to say about it. is that girls compete and women empower. And we want to be women. We want to empower one another. And to your point, there's always going to be a spot for all of us. And I'm glad that I have all three of you in my life that are real and are bringing us all up together. With that being said, I have about 5 minutes before boarding, so I'm going to cut the episode off here because I think we could talk for another 3 hours and our viewers are going to be like, okay, time to go. But anyways, so it was great having you on. Thank you for joining us, Sabrina. We're so glad to have you with us today.
Of course.
And,
also,
and,
Diane and Kat,
yep, any last messages? That was my last.
y'all are at
question.
UF?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm coming for a football game this season.
I mean, unfortunately, we won't be students next year. Who knows where we'll be? But if we do end up still in the state, well, maybe we'll come down for a baseball game.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Maybe we'll come down for a baseball game.
I'm a huge Rays fan.
We're big Rays fans. I'm dying to go to a Rays game. I've never been.
It's
Someone told me this.
Yeah, like let's go. We're 2 hours away.
We're literally right there. Yeah.
Let us
You
know.
tell me the game, you're there. No, you tell me the game. I got you.
Weekend trip.
Sports right here, baby.
She's Tony,
Yes.
reroute that flight.
I might have to. I might have to tell my
What are
parents.
you doing?
I'm not with you anymore. But all right. Well, thank you for joining us and thank you all for tuning in. We're so glad to have you on this episode of Name 5 Players. And that's it for this week. We'll see you next week. Bye.